Wow, it's happening. Ravi, glass of water, please. I'm ready.
LifeBridge presents KC Life Talks, Life and Leadership Lessons.
My dad would grab my mom's hair and literally bang against the wall that she developed pus in her brain and she became very ill. And I was about 6 years old and I still remember having taken her to the hospital. The doctors have put a tube through her nose and tried to take out all the pus and treat her in the hospital for almost a week. And during this time, she lost her hair. Her body became very skinny and I could not even recognize my mother. But the doctors were suddenly giving up hope as her brain started reacting to the chemical pollution that was happening in her brain, and she was suffering much during those times. And finally the doctors said that she will not make it. She stopped eating food and she was in so much pain, and doctor said, you can take her home and just wait for a few more hours and she will die. And I still remember an ambulance coming to our house with my mom. Or preparing for the funeral as though my grandfather in fact arranged a place to even bury my mother, waiting for my mom to breathe her last. They did not even bother to take the body into the bedroom because it was not worth it. And she would die any moment. And I still remember standing by her bedside as a small boy, crying out to God. And I said to God, God, if you are there, you need to heal my mom. I said to God, God, I have a father, but I don't have a father. And all I have is this mother. Please don't take her away from my life. I cried with desperation. All of my family, my grandfather, my grandmother, my brothers, we were all crying in tears. We ate no food. We just sat there and prayed till God did something. My friends, I saw the hand of God. Within few hours, my mom opened her eyes. And then within the next few hours, she asked for some water. And then within few minutes, she began to say a few words. And gradually, within few hours, she sat up for the very first time in days. And I still remember by that evening, that day, she had some porridge, some kanji, and she ate for the very first time. And there was some kind of an element of faith and the seed faith that was put inside of me that was already there from way back, kind of rose to a new whole level. But after my mom got healed, my dad's illness just continued to amount and get worse. And in my high school days, my dad would tear up my notebooks and my test books weeks before my exams. To the extent, my friends, I failed in my year 10 in my high school because I could not study properly. I could not have my notes ready to prepare myself for the exams. And so on one side, I know that there is a hope, there is some thread which I can hold on, but on the other side, there is absolutely no let up on the situation on my dad's health, and it's just getting worse. And so my grandfather at that moment have started selling all of the properties to treat for my dad, for the witchcraft, for this, that and the other. There was money shelled out everywhere. My wealthy grandfather, who was an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur of his time, is now suddenly with nothing. And our family became very poor and we started depending on my dad's older brothers and other family friends and the generosity of other people around us, and it was a very difficult moment. There was no food for me to nurture a growing boy in me, and there's any milk or egg, we had to go and sell it so that we can have some money to buy our rice, and no money to buy our clothes. And we went through a season of financial crisis, and desperation just began to mount one after the other, and there was no let up on my dad's illness. I sensed in my heart that the double standardness of our spirituality, the lack of full surrender to the Lordship of Jesus Christ, have driven us to exploring other avenues like witchcraft, mounting up the enormity of the pressure of demonic forces, and all amounted to God somehow not giving a breakthrough. I feel perhaps there would have been a better result had there been a total surrender to the will and purposes of God and complete dependency on God and God alone and nothing else. And there was an aftermath of the result of the spirituality of that day in the church. As a growing up as a young boy, I could sense this hypocrisy and the double standardness of even many pastors and even believers that could not just live out the gospel in its purity. And perhaps that have all added to this reason for the unanswered prayer for my father. But all of this meant that now my grandfather is financially poor, lost all his money, all the hope in medical field has now failed. The holy spiritual act in prayer and fasting have failed. The witchcraft have failed. Everything have failed, and there is utter hopelessness for these three boys growing up now, and my mother, the safety of my mother, and grandfather suddenly recognizing he is getting on age and he is not going to be there to continue to provide and help. And so now my grandfather feels he needs to take things in his own hands and try to put an end to this misery. And he felt he needed to do something on his own strength and his own ability and take ownership and take responsibility for the misery that we three boys might end up going through. And so my grandfather called me and my younger brother to assist him in a plot to murder my father. The hopelessness and the terrible situation of our family have driven all three of us to even willing to listen to this whole idea, or even just to agree to the whole plan, is something that I look back and I cannot put my finger to, but I think the desperation have driven us to even agree for that. And my grandfather told myself and my brother, look, I'm old now. You guys are young. You have a future in front of you. And with your dad like this, there's no way you're going to make it. And so I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to own up for the problem that he feels that he have created. And I said, I'm going to kill my son. I'm going to kill my son so that you guys can live. And I need your help in this whole plot. And he said, I will surrender myself to the police. I will go to the jail and spend whatever few years remaining at this age in my life. I will spend it in jail so that you guys can live. And I was tasked with the job of throwing red hot chili pepper on my dad's eyes, blind him, and then my younger brother would somehow hold my dad's legs and arms or hold him up, or my grandfather would then use a hammer to hit on my dad's head and kill him. This was the plan. And during this time, my dad was unwell. And so my dad somehow realized that there is something unusual happening here. And he had this unusual way to discern things that were happening around the house. He applied oil all over his body that day. And he started abusing my mother, and he started abusing me, and he was coming to even physically hurt me. And I had red chili powder in my hand, and my grandfather was positioned, my brother was positioned. We were all ready for this plot to murder. And it was kind of evening, about 4 o'clock in the evening. And I still remember me getting very frustrated and angry, throwing the red chili powder into my dad's face. But somehow being a young boy, what do I know to kill a man? The chili powder just went all over the air. A good amount of it went to my dad's eyes, but part of it just gone into the air, in the atmosphere, causing all of us to hurt, and we were burning in our eyes. And by now my grandfather comes in and my brother comes in, and we're trying to, there was a tussle going on, and then my grandfather takes the hammer and he just bang on my dad's head, but my dad moved and the hammer landed on my brother's head. What I saw was blood coming out of my brother's head. Traumatizing moment in my life. My grandfather cried. I'm crying. My grandmother came running, not knowing what is going on. My mother came screaming, not knowing what is going on. There's a big sound in the house. Neighbors started rushing in, and the commotion went on. And now my dad is wild and violent on one side, and my brother is bleeding. Who do you take care of, my dad or my brother? And somehow my neighbors and people helped tie my dad's legs and arms, and my brother was taken to the hospital. And when we landed there, the doctor said he needed to have 8 stitches on his head. And in the meantime, my dad was taken to the mental hospital in Trivandrum. And that became a huge crisis in our home, in a family. Guilt and all kinds of pain and trauma and depression have began to settle in my heart. And I began to just question my very existence in this world anymore. Rejected, tortured, sexually abused, no friends, no love. Everything that the world seems to offer to me was all pain and sorrow and nothing else. So I'm now contemplating things in my heart about my own life. I began to hate myself. I just didn't like myself anymore. The fact that here I am, a man who tried even to plot or to be part of a murder to kill my own father. So all of that have driven me to utter desperate hopelessness and all of human efforts failing. I realize it's time to end. It's time to put an end to all of this story. My dear friends, religion without relationship with God never brings the fulfillment and purpose we need in our lives. And human solutions and human efforts are never the solution to the crisis or the problems that we face in our life. And that is exactly what happened in my life and in our home. That we try to depend on our own abilities and our own strength and our own finances and wisdom, and our religion would try to say, whether it is Christianity or Hinduism or even Islamic faith, there is nothing that we haven't tried. But ultimately, God holds the key to everything that He wants to accomplish in our lives. And until and unless we come to that Creator God and we tap into His solution, His answer, there is really no answer to the human cries. And the Bible says in Ecclesiastes that God has put eternity in our hearts. And if God has put eternity in our hearts and He has put His plan and purpose in our lives, and there is not a single person in this world that is born an accident or out of context, everyone has a purpose. And all the things that has happened in my life, He was orchestrating it step by step and maneuvering it in such a way that the perfect sovereign will of God, the perfect plan of God really is unfolded in our lives. As the hymn writer says, trust and obey, for there is no other way to be happy in Jesus. Only trust and obey. There was an overpowering sense of spirit of death that have now taken over me, and standing under the tree, the gloom, dark place was all but the smell of death.
Don't miss the story and experience. Subscribe LifeBridge and stay tuned.